island of Oahu, 6 a.m. Central Pacific Time. It's a typical Sunday morning in the Hawaiian Islands. US sailors are at ease.
I remember very well what I was doing. It was my first day aboard. It was a beautiful, sunny day. I was up and had breakfast, first one in the wardroom. Then I was up on deck admiring the scenery and was pretty happy.
To the north, 6 Japanese aircraft carriers take position 130 miles off Oahu.
When the order came down, we had been training for 6 months for this inevitability, and we were ready to go. We were confident that we would be able to perform to the maximum extent of our military capability.
183 Japanese fighters and torpedo planes take flight. At 7 a.m., a US radar station picks up the Japanese planes, but they're mistaken for B-17 bombers, which are scheduled to arrive.
We went inside to eat, and about the time I got inside to get a chance to eat something, I heard a loud explosion. And I thought, what the dickens is that?
Now, it was not unusual to hear gunfire on a Sunday morning because the Army was building up gun sites around the island, and they tested them every morning.
7:55 a.m., the first Japanese planes reach Oahu.
There must have been about 25 or 30 of them that went by us. Boy, what a spectacle. Our planes would come around sometime and come close to us, you know, maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but never like this. So we were thinking, oh, we're having an air show or something, you know.
Says, we're under attack. The Japanese are attacking us. No, it's those dang Marines. Now, a few weeks before, we were out at sea, and the Marines were diving on us, making believe we were the enemy ship. So I wanted to believe that it was Marines.
The US Pacific Fleet has no idea what's in store for them.
The first one that came close was flying so low that you could see the color of his eyes.
They had these helmets on, and their goggles were up on their heads, and he had this, looked like a scarf around his head.
And I could see the black goggles and the oriental face, that's all. And I said, by golly, we are under attack.
And then somebody says, look up there, and right above the harbor, and way up high, there maybe about 15, 20,000 feet, here they come, a lot of planes.
It's the first wave of the Japanese attack.
Then at the same time, there comes another squadron, maybe 50 feet above the water.
Their primary targets are the US airfields and battleships in the harbor.
He went into a dive, straight down. I never saw a plane dive like that. All of a sudden, he straightened out right above the water, and he dropped the torpedo. There was a huge splash and an explosion, and the Raleigh seemed to rise up like that, a couple of feet, and then went back down. And then it hit us, this Japanese attack.
That means war. But what's war going to be like?
The shocked and dazed Americans try to gather themselves, but the Japanese attacks are relentless.
There's practically no opposition. They had enough fuel for an hour or two on there. They flew around shooting at anything that moved.
Japanese fighters and dive bombers swarm over the airfield in the center of the harbor. 33 US aircraft are destroyed on the ground.
I ran back toward the hatch door to pull the general alarm. And about the time I got to pull it, which I never did, a bomb dropped between us and the vessel. And it blew me inside the hatch. Of course, you know, that set off wildfire. And of course, the Japanese were then machine gunning the decks, like spraying the decks with machine gun fire.
All hell broke loose. They started bombing and hearing explosions and smoke and fire going in the air. Looking up in the air, there were so many airplanes peeling off right out of the, diving on the ships and dropping their torpedoes. And after they made their bombing run, they would fly over our gun positions. We didn't have any guns.
As the crew of the USS Oklahoma scrambles to man the anti-aircraft guns, Japanese torpedo planes swoop low and drop their deadly payloads. 3 torpedoes strike the battleship. It capsizes, trapping hundreds of men in its hull.
We got out of the way there, and then I headed for the Oklahoma. But where was the Oklahoma? It was here a minute ago. All of a sudden, I realized the Oklahoma had capsized. Here, all we see is this big hull. Boy, I felt like somebody had kicked me in the stomach, because that's our sister ship. The Nevada sister ship was the Oklahoma. And here she is capsized. You just don't kill a battleship that way.
Next, the USS Utah and the USS Helena are both hit. An armor-piercing bomb strikes the USS Arizona. It explodes in a massive fireball.
So I got out of the turret and started up that ladder to the boat deck where all the anti-aircraft guns were. Well, I got to the top of the ladder, and an enormous explosion occurred. And people were just blown all over the place.
The ship jumps 20 feet out of the water, then breaks in 2.
There's all kinds of body parts, different. There was nothing I could do to do it for anything, and a tremendous fire broke out. On the way back, I grabbed a guy by the hand who was on fire, and I held on to him. And he was from Greenfield, Ohio. I never forgot that. And I saved him. I got him out of there. But he was on fire. I got the fire out.
Almost 1,000 men aboard the Arizona are killed instantly.
We started picking up survivors. They were sliding down off the Oklahoma and so forth. We had so many, we had them hanging on the gunwales.
No matter how attentive you are when you see bodies scattered around, that occupies your attention. Walking around, looking at the name tags and trying to memorize them with the idea of writing and telling them what happened to their son on that morning.
Rooms being filled with wounded, and some of them during the night had released the tourniquets they had on, and so they would die, you know. They didn't want to live with whatever wound they had received.